one way of getting better at rebounding is if you emphasize offensive rebounding, your players in practice automatically have to box out better. So that gets exposed if you're not doing that. I often describe like the course of a basketball game like it's a heartbeat, and we want a fairly level line with how we handle the good and how we handle the bad. And I want to be the same as a coach. I think that they respond to that better.
Hey, Coach, welcome to episode 11 of Game Time. Today I'm talking with Tony Kemper, head coach of the University of Central Arkansas women's basketball program. We had a great discussion on defense, rebounding, preparing for big games, how to coach a player with a very unique skill set, and many other items. Let's go. So one of the first things that I love to ask to kind of get the listeners and viewers to understand your coaching philosophies and your style is, what do you want your identity to be at Central Arkansas?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And one, if you came here, I don't have slogans on the wall. I think that versatility has been really important for us. And if you came to practice, we lean defense. If let's say game prep of a team, we're probably 60-40 defense. But I think that everywhere I've coached, I think it's been really important to try to figure out how you win with the team that's right in front of me. And so this team has gotten, like, we can win a lot of different kind of games. Like if you want to grind us, we've won some 51-50s. And if we need to score, we can score 87-77. And we have a lot of different players with a lot of different skill sets. And I think as a coaching staff, one of the things that we need to be good at is putting, what do we need right now? And then of the people that we have, who can provide the things that we need to counter maybe what we're seeing, or maybe expose some things that we're seeing. I think that's really important. I think if you sat down our kids, that's probably something along the lines that they would say is we need to be good at in all phases so we can figure out what is needed in the moment and get it done. So that I think is where we start. And I think you would see that reflected in practice we do a lot of different stuff. We have a base of things that we do on offense and defense, but we're going to move the margins based on who's in the game for us. What does the other team do well? And how can we take our system, both on the defensive end and offensive end, and fit it in the moment and try to get the job done.
So let's talk defense a little bit. So you are top, 10-15% in the country for opponent's field goal percentage. What kind of philosophies have led to that? I mean, are you ball pressure, force and baseline, lots of communication? What kind of philosophies have helped that success?
Yeah, so our overall philosophy is try to stay between the ball and the basket. So we want shots taken over the top of a hand. And so almost everything we do, is based upon the team we're playing within our scheme. How do we do that? I think we're pretty good at kind of picking our poison, so to speak. Like I don't believe you can take everything away. I think there's some coaches that do. I think Kelvin Sampson can take everything away. I think we do a pretty good job of communicating and deciding what we're okay with at the start of a game. And so we're not going to allow this and this. We will allow this. And then to a certain point, our kids know that we're going to allow whatever that is, but then we're going to move off of that. If they hurt us on that, then they always know we're going to counter that. And so we like to contain the dribble. That's really important. We do switch often, 1 through 4 especially. We typically play a pretty long post player that we like to basket protect with as much as we can. We have versatile 4-men. So I like to have 4-men that can be a post type 4-man, so she can guard in the post, but she can also move on the perimeter. when we need it that way. So we kind of look at, most teams are organized 4 out now. So most often we are in a switching mode at the 4. If we feel like you can post us at the 4, then we're probably not switching with our 4. Right now we've got a tremendous defensive 4. She's the preseason defensive player of the year in our league. I think our stat guy tells me that she is second in our league as a team in block shots. So it's Central Arkansas 1, Bree Stevens 2, and then whoever's number 3 as a team. So right now we've got a really good piece that is versatile at the 4. She's long, so she can guard a traditional 4-man, but she's also super sharp and uses her length on the perimeter to guard perimeters. But we're very much contained. We're going to be spotty pressure, meaning when we're really good defensively, we're good about understanding, like, I'm close enough to the ball that I need to be disruptive. So we have 2 people on the ball, and now I've got to be disruptive. So we don't create a lot of turnovers. Typically, we create a lot of missed shots. But we do want to be a team that understands if I go to help, that I have to be disruptive when I go. So we're trying not to require much help if we can, but when we go, we want to be disruptive.
So usually I kind of stick to team philosophies and stuff to help high school and youth coaches a little. But since you brought up Bree Stevens, I'm not surprised you brought her up in the first 2 questions already. I had a question about her specifically and how you coach someone with such a unique skill set. I mean, she's 7th in scoring on your team, but 2nd in rebounds, and then the unique skill set of 1st in blocks by a long shot, as you said, and 1st in assists on your team. That doesn't happen on very often. So do you coach someone like that differently, or do you just find more ways to help them succeed?
Well, this is going to sound really simple. You let her play. You realize what you have with her. And she's a way better offensive shooter and stuff than what her numbers say. She basically got here and she was injured when she had a foot injury that kept her out of a lot of practice last year. So I think her rhythm on the offensive end, it's always been hard for her to kind of do that. But here, not before she got here, she's always been a really good shooter. But she did so many other things well that you could tell that she was really important to us. So our stat guy called her a unicorn the other day. She's a unicorn. I mean, if it's a tight spot in a game and we need a difficult pass, she's probably the one that I'm using to make the pass. She does space the floor because she can shoot it. Defensively, she probably, I kid her a lot. I'm like, you're the best defensive player in the country that's never been in a stance. She's very unique. She moves different than a lot of people, but she's super long. She has great timing. So there's a lot of times when I think other players think they have her beat and they do not have her beat. She can recover really well and she can block the shot with either hand. And so I think that's, that maybe a little versatility in coaching too, that I don't really bring them in and show them how I want a defensive stance. I think they all move differently. I've really evolved in stuff like that. When I first started coaching, it's like there's a right way to do all this stuff. And the more you do it, the more you're like, there's probably a right way for each kid to do this stuff. And for somebody like that, you can watch her enough, you start to respect that she can probably figure it out. So maybe it doesn't look like a textbook thing, but watch the result and then just see it over and over and over again. And then you try to improve them. You work on the margins of what they are, but you get her in the game and let her play. And that stuff, the stuff that she is doing happens. If her and I argue over her stance, then you can't ever figure out that she can block shots like that. She's going to be your best assist to turnover ratio person. She's a tremendous decision maker in terms of fixing problems for our team. She just has feel. And, maybe she isn't going to get in a stance and slap the floor, but her stance works, and so that's probably something that I've learned to give on over the years. I'm way less drill based than I used to be. We play a lot. And if you play a lot, you discover things like that.
So let's talk about transition offense. You had mentioned you don't get a lot of turnovers defensively, but you still, when you run, you're very successful when you run. A lot of efficiency in transition. And I've noticed watching game film, you like to run on turnovers, but also miss shots and made shots. It seems like Bree Stevens or whoever's down low gets it out of the rim quickly and you go. What kind of philosophy do you have for transition that helps them kind of have that mentality of push, push, push?
Yeah, I think that's just this team is playing faster than most of the teams that I coach. And that's, I guess, going back to that first philosophy of mine of like, what do you have? Like, what does your team have? And then, we grew a lot through the course of last year and we returned everyone. So I knew that offensively we had a pretty good team. So if you have a pretty good team offensively, then you want more possessions. So now we've got to go get more possessions. And so, our point guard is very good at controlling the game. I think I could go Kinley Fisher. I could probably leave the bench and then she would get 80%. If you asked her, what would you do in this situation? And your Coach Kemper, what's he thinking? She would get a lot of those right. So she does a good job of pushing makes and misses. And she also does a good job of managing time and score within that. So there's not a lot of separation between what she's thinking and what I'm thinking. And what I mean by that is maybe like 2-for-1s towards the end of quarters. There's an art to like, sometimes you're playing fast, sometimes you're playing slow, and she does that well. And we've learned that over time. I think something that helps our transition is shooting. We can stretch the floor. So if you have to stretch your defense, then it opens up players like Liz Abiara, who can really run the floor. She's a post player that rim runs very well. And so now we can stress you at the rim, and you also have to spread your defense for our shooters. And so I just think over this year, we've learned we need to play faster. We need to find easy baskets. I think we can play half court offense if need be, but if you continually go, teams will make mistakes, even the good ones. Mm-hmm. If you go 10 times, they get it right 8 out of 10, but the 2 out of 10, can we get a really good player open? And this year we've gotten better. We've improved at that, and we can. So I think generally we're pushing most of the time, but that kind of goes back to my overall philosophy. There's some games where we push, but we're not jacking shots. We're pushing to take the right shot. And this group has gotten good at recognizing what that is.
So 3-point wise, it's a big part of your offense. Do you have any shooting drills? You had mentioned you don't do a lot of drills, but I'm sure you do shooting drills. Do you have any shooting drills that the players love that have helped with the 3-point shooting?
Yeah, we do something every week called competition shooting. And we're getting ready for the Florida Gulf Coast game, and giving them credit. I've had an assistant from Florida Gulf Coast. So I think that they do something similar to this. So I've stolen it from the team that we're competing against, because I hired somebody that coached under Coach Smesko. But it breaks down to 10 minutes per player per week, and it is 4 different drills or 5 different drills, and we chart how many makes, misses per week. We have a really good practice set up here at Central Arkansas. We basically, our practice gym's attached to our main gym. So twice a week, right now we split it takes about 15 minutes twice a week on 2 different practice days. We split and we do what's called competition shooting, which is just reps, different games. but just shot reps. And so we do that every week. I think this team has been the best at competing in that stuff. Often I put a little bit of a game on it. Like yesterday we shot what we call heat, which is 3 in a row from 5 spots over 2 minutes. We did red light, green light, which we stole from Oregon a couple years ago. And then we do something called star shooting, which is a little bit of running. And we kind of look at maybe what we shot last week. We put an average together for the team. So we say individually, you have to average 35 on those 3. And then we win or lose. Yesterday, we averaged 42. So we shot it way better this week than we did last week. So we do some things like that to shoot. We definitely do some shooting drills. I think the reps have helped us over time become better. We've been doing that for the last 2 years, where we've continued it through the season. So the first time I did it, we stopped when the season started. Now we do it. I find time to do it every week. And I think that that's helped. Typically, our team makes about 1,000 shots per week in that 30-minute section of practice. So every player is contributing to those 1,000 makes.
You had mentioned Kinley Fisher can basically read your mind. How much, other than, put aside her intelligence, which she's a very smart basketball player, setting aside that, how do you help her learn what you're thinking besides just communication and game film? Is it just that and reps? And what's the best thing you found?
Yeah, I think it's communication. I mean, it's having open lines of back and forth with her in moments that matter too. So early in the season, we're having conversations during the game, like free throws. That's a really good time to talk to the person that is managing the game for you. And with Kinley, she can stack information, so I can tell her. I can kind of go through the last 3 minutes of a quarter and what I'm thinking. Like we've got, we're up 7. I want to take everything fast that's really good, and I want to go slow if it's not obvious, and she does a good job of playing out the last 3 minutes of that, trying to manage those situations. But that is her and me both working together on that stuff, and her being, sometimes she comes over there and goes, is this what you're thinking? And those are good conversations to be having,
So in practices, how often are you doing situational type stuff?
Once a week, probably, something like that. We don't do it every day. We do situational for game prep for the next opponent. But we're not going, it's not something that we just do and we do and we do and we do. I think early in the season, we do it less. As you start to play games, then we start to get pretty pointed with late game management, different situational management. And then we just, at this point in the year, sometimes you put in stuff, we have stuff in that we actually haven't needed, if that makes sense. So sometimes you'll go through a year where it's like you put things in week 1, and by week 2, everybody has already seen all the stuff that you were going to use to win a game. And this team, it's random is what it is. But we have a lot of things that, we're going to use this in this situation, and they know it, and we haven't needed to use it. So I think that kind of stuff helps as well. I think if, let's say we would have played 2 very tight games last week where we needed side out of bounds game-winning plays, then we would need to recycle some things in for this week. So we would need to do more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we're sort of sitting on, because we haven't used them, the things that they've known all year. This is what's coming in this situation.
You're sitting on some gold.
Well, you hope it's gold. You hope it's gold. But even like we won a game on a last second inbounds play where, Leah Mafua read the situation. We had something else. We have good players. We have the floor spaced, and then our kids can read and counter what they experience, and so whatever, our radio guy's like, that was a great inbounds play. And I was like, that's not what I thought was going to be there. But if you have the right kids and you are smart in the way you space the floor, then, Bree stepped inbounds, Leah was doubled, she dumped it in, and we shot a layup to win a game. I thought we would get a layup, but I thought it would come from someone else.
So we talked about defense. Obviously, defense doesn't end until you get the ball, whether it's a rebound or they make a shot. Your rebounding margin is extremely good. Is there anything that you do coaching-wise to help the mentality? Rebounding's all about mentality and instinct. Is there any way that you can enhance that?
Yeah, so I'm not very drill based. I told you that. We don't really do rebounding drills. I think the best thing that we've done to get better at rebounding is emphasize offensive rebounding. So we just, our staff just kind of talked about it, and it probably started, this is the best offensive rebounding team I've had. And I still want to go more. I still want to get better at that area. But we just kind of talked about, I don't like setting up a drill that I just know is just going to look like this. Because I think it's just not me. Some people are really good at that. That's not me. I want to be healthy this time of year if we can be. And I think we can get there through other means. And so I think, one way of getting better at rebounding is if you emphasize offensive rebounding, your players in practice automatically have to box out better. So that gets exposed if you're not doing that. And then you can take a simple 5-on-5 game and just give more points for offensive, pick out a thing of rebounding and then emphasize or reward that thing. And I think it can make rebounding better. So you can work on all the things and then make rebounding a touch point, and your team, I think, over time is going to get better. But, if I said one thing, I'm big on playing. Like, I want decisions. I want them to have a lot of reps over the course of the year. Let's emphasize rebounding. Let's emphasize specifically offensive rebounding, because defensive rebounding grows with that. If your team is better at offensive rebounding, your defensive rebounding automatically gets better.
I like that philosophy. That's great. So you have a huge game in 2 days. Florida Gulf Coast, who's 14-0 in the conference. You're 13-1. They're on a 16-game win streak. You're on a 12. What do the next 2 days look like preparing for a big game like that?
Yeah, so a lot of scout-specific stuff on the offensive and defensive end. This time of year, I just kind of went through. I do think it's important to continue to play in practice. I do think it's important to continue to be competitive in practice. I also think it's really important to be smart in practice. So, we have practice guys. I don't use them every day because I want reps for our team. I can, if we're playing against each other, we can shorten time. If I have 10 players in the 10 players in the drill, then that can be half the amount of time. So we do use practice guys. We kind of use them spotty. We will be a lot on, this is what we think is going to be there offensively against Florida Gulf Coast. And then this is what we need to do to try to counter the things that they do well. We will shoot today, competition shooting. We'll finish our week of competition shooting. We do quite a bit this time of year of what I call simple reading drills. So maybe we're in a ball screen, we're playing 3-on-3 against coaches in a ball screen, just little quick touch points of like, what did you see? They iced, so we do this, then you're reading that. And so it is live-ish, but they're still having to think through the different scenarios that they might see when they play. So quite a bit of 5-on-5 that's pretty scout specific. And then we do shoot quite often in practice. And then we do a lot of smaller games. Sometimes we roll back, though, them playing against each other in those. A lot of times, sometimes they're simple reading coaches, but they're still making decisions. I think over time, I've gotten much better about less drills where there's drills, there's a decision in there somewhere. Like what are you seeing and what is your counter to what you're experiencing?
So it seems like adaptability would be pretty high on your list of characteristics that you value in coaching, whether it be year to year or team to team or day to day or even in game. What's another aspect or characteristic of a coach that you feel they must have to be successful?
I think consistency is really important. Like I think that maybe the old school version of coaches were sometimes they're very high, they're very low, and players maybe don't know what to expect day in and day out. I think that style has gotten harder to do. I don't think they see that. I think our parenting's changed a lot. I think what they're used to has changed a lot. So, our staff, we want to be very consistent with the mentality that they're going to see in practice. There's definitely days where I'm elevated, but not much. I mean, I want I often describe like the course of a basketball game, like it's a heartbeat, and we want a fairly level line with how we handle the good and how we handle the bad. And I want to be the same as a coach. I think that they respond to that better. I think if I'm consistent, they know what to expect. Our players love to look at our practice plan. And I kind of kid them because I'm like, you probably could write the practice plan and you act like there might be something on there that will be really scary today, because we do want to be fairly consistent with the way we handle them. So I think adaptability is right. I think it is important. It's important for me. And I do think that's another thing of coaching. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I've been lucky because I have been a head coach for a long time now. So I have learned a lot over, I've really lost how many years I've done this. I think eight years, maybe 9. Well, I'm a lot different than I was early on. And I think for the most part, the differences are good ones that have helped my teams. And so adapt, make sure it fits your personality, and then make sure you can be that person every day, and learn the things that are going to get you beat and coach those pretty hard, coach those things out. But then, going back to Bree Stevens, learn the things that maybe aren't perfect, which is really just her stance, really just her stance. But her and I could have fought about a stance for a really long time, and we would have missed one of the best shot blockers in the country. And so, adapting, I could adapt my style to win with that. And so learning how to do that, I think, and it is super important to what we do. And I think that's really important for youth coaches, because maybe I can control the players that I coach even better than, a long time ago, I was a high school coach. You get what you get in high school. So you've got I do think you need a plan for a program, but then sometimes you're going to need to take your plan and move it a little bit over here. So I still have 50% of it is our system, but this team is really good inside. And for the last 3 years, I haven't had a post player. So now how do I take our system so that there is retention of things we used to do, but then move it to adapt to the fact that now we have a post presence that is really good and we can use them within our system.
I love that. Okay, I'll get you out of here on this. I call this the fast break portion. It's just a couple of quick answer questions. We have Team A, best offensive team in the country, mediocre defensively, or team B, mediocre offensively, and best defensive team in the country? Who would you rather coach?
I'd rather coach offense. This team at Central Arkansas has taught me that it's easier to win games if you can score than it is to win games if you can't. So I would take the offensive one, and then we'd probably work really hard to get better on defense. Is probably what I'd do.
What's one thing coaching wise that you're trying to get better at?
Psychology. I mean, how do I get better at instilling confidence in the players that I coach?
Okay, if I'm heading to Conway, Arkansas to watch a Sugar Bears game, what's one restaurant and one site that I need to see?
The restaurant's probably Mike's Place downtown. A great kind of Cajun-y steakhouse, really good. So I'd say Mike's Place. Conway is it's kind of a bedroom community of Little Rock. It's growing really fast. So that's an interesting one. Probably, so we have this big thing called the Toad Suck Festival, which I don't even really know where that name comes from. So I would say you need to go downtown and see Toad Suck Square. They're going to have a massive carnival there every summer. That's probably the landmark. It's right next to Mike's, so you can hit that all in the same little route. So
Perfect.
that's what I would say.
Sounds good. All right, Coach, thanks
Yep.
a lot for your time. I appreciate it. Youth and high school coaches are going to love this, and best of luck on Thursday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.